Hello, YouTube. Sir Dragon X here. What's a real cost of living here in Mexico? Well, we're going to go over the truth and what some people might not be telling you in the video coming up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I was just watching a recent YouTube video from a well-known Mexico YouTuber who no longer lives in Mexico discussing social classes in Mexico and how much income was associated with each class according to official Mexican government statistics. It got me to thinking, although this video was based on official statistics and the YouTuber had good intentions in mind, this type of video actually does a disservice to those researching a move to Mexico, which I will explain why in this video. It also reminded me of the plethora of videos on YouTube about the cost of living in Mexico. It seems to be the most popular topic amongst YouTube channels. I see such titles as Real Cost of Living in Mexico or How to Live in Mexico on $1,500 a month. It also happens to be the most common question I see in expat Facebook groups, in my comment section, and during my free consultations. I actually shy away from doing cost of living videos. Why? Because my answer is always the same. There's no amount of statistics, comparisons to local salaries, or experiences that can really pin down the cost of living in Mexico. Truth is that there's no black and white answer when it comes to the cost of living in Mexico. The true answer is, it depends. Today, I'm going to touch on this topic and explain why it depends and what most people won't tell you or forget to mention. I'm sure YouTubers that have created these videos have good intentions, but most of these videos are flawed in a sense and may not reflect the true picture or fit your particular needs. The first mistake I usually see in these videos is when YouTubers use a salary comparison or government statistics and real estate websites to nail down the cost of living here in Mexico. For example, they will pull statistics for the average salary of a doctor or nurse, or they'll pull official Mexican government statistics on the average middle class or upper middle class salary. The deduction here is that if the average Social Security check of $1,700 a month is the same as a nurse, doctor, or puts you in the Mexican middle class, you should be able to easily live in Mexico on $1,700. Sounds like a logical and solid argument, right? Well, here's the problem with this argument. Although statistics can be useful, sometimes they don't reflect the true situation. For example, most statistics pulled in Mexico, such as average salaries, are pulled from official records. Why is this important? Because some professionals don't report their whole income to the tax authority or may have a secondary income that may not be reported under their profession. So let's take that public health doctor, for example. Their average salary may be $20,000 a year, but at the same time, that doctor, in most cases, has a private practice which generates a separate income. So yes, the average salary for a public health doctor is $20,000 a year, but that does not truly reflect that doctor's complete earnings. Some doctors even own businesses, have second jobs, or have investments that have nothing to do with their professions. Also, it's not uncommon for professionals to have a second job or even a third job or own an independent business. Often, some of this income is made in cash, which isn't reported. There is a whole secondary economy here in Mexico, which you won't find in government statistics. Furthermore, I must note that a middle-class life in Mexico or certain professions cannot be equivocated to the corresponding profession in the United States. For example, a nurse in Mexico is not at the same level socially as a nurse in the United States. A nurse in Mexico does not demand the same level of salary as nurses in the United States. A nurse in Mexico is considered a vocational profession versus a nurse in the United States, which is considered a professional. It's also important to note that a middle-class life here in Mexico is different. Many times, multiple family members reside in the same house since most houses here in Mexico are paid in full or subsidized by a government program called Infonavit. For those fortunate to own their own home, they don't pay rent, and property taxes are $100 to $300 a year. Many of those fortunate enough to own a home also have several family members living with them until they can save up enough money to afford to buy their own house. So you see, that doctor that was mentioned in the statistics may be living with family members. My point is, the lifestyle of a doctor or nurse here is not equivalent to the lifestyle of a doctor or nurse in the United States. The second mistake I see some YouTubers make is taking the cost of living statistics off websites and creating a hypothetical budget on a whiteboard. Problem with this is that the cost of rent, goods, and essentials varies widely depending on where you live. So you see, once again, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Finally, I see countless videos of what I call the famous break down our budget method. This is where the YouTuber shares their personal spending habits, or a person on Facebook mentions their budget, deducing that if I can do it, so can you. Although this is a more realistic approach that I do agree is more accurate, it's important to note that everyone's situation and preferences are different. Your budget depends on many factors. Being able to own a house frees up rent. Your preferences in shopping habits, such as going to the local market versus grocery stores, may make a difference. Going out to eat and entertainment expenses can vary substantially depending on your personal preference. Where you choose to live also plays a factor on local prices. So, what's my answer to the cost of living here in Mexico? Can you live in Mexico on $1,500 a month? Are these YouTubers or people on Facebook lying to me? The truth is, nobody's lying to you, and I truly believe that every single YouTuber and person on Facebook is truly trying to help. They may have just left some things out. The simple answer is yes, you can live in Mexico on $1,500 a month. And I personally know people who live here in Mexico on even less. But like I always say, it depends. I think the big problem is that we make assumptions based on all these statistics and videos that we overlook the most important part of moving to Mexico on a budget. When someone asks me what the cost of living here in Mexico is, my answer is always, it depends. It can range from $1,000 a month to $10,000 a month, depending on your lifestyle and expectations. You need to look at factors such as renting versus buying. Renting, depending on the area, can eat up a $1,500 budget really quick. But at the same time, you can rent for $500 a month, but you may have to move into a local neighborhood versus an expat community. $500 a month may only get you a room versus an apartment. On top of that, if you research, you may find the rental deal of a lifetime. If you buy, you eliminate rent and have more to spend on other things. Another big factor is location. For example, hotter areas such as Mérida may require you to run an air conditioner all day long, and electric bills can get exponentially expensive and cost more than your rent. Also, overall expenses vary depending on location. Just like in the United States, living in New York is much more expensive than living in Ohio. Cost of goods also varies depending on where you shop. For example, buying from a local market is much cheaper than buying at a chain grocery store. The cost of electronics here in Mexico can be almost double the cost of that in the United States. Last but not least, you must also consider how to qualify for residency, because this may curtail any plans you may have. Residency options should always be the first step in research before you start working on a budget. I think the best answer to the cost of living is to be realistic in what your expectations are when it comes to the cost of living here in Mexico. I believe there is a budget for everyone when it comes to moving to Mexico. Moving to Mexico is not just about the cost, it's about the culture and the beauty of this country. Some of the best experiences in life are free. Build a budget that fits your needs, but at the same time, realize that you may need to make some compromises here and there to fit that budget. But in the end, the experience will be worth every penny you have spent or saved. At the same time, remember that anybody who tries to convince you that Mexico is a third world country and that you will live a luxury lifestyle on $1,500 a month is lying to you. What I can tell you is that if you move to Mexico, regardless of your budget, and you're willing to make some compromises, you can live a happy and fulfilling life. So, what's my budget here in Mexico? Well, I'm not going to tell you, but I will tell you that my quality of life is much better and more fulfilling here in Mexico than in the United States. And in closing, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights into life in this beautiful country. It really helps me to make more content to help you. Until next time, stay safe and stay informed.